thank you all for being here. We're going to go ahead and get started. So my name is Sarah Boss. I'm a content creator and a content strategist. I personally have amassed an audience around 800,000 followers. And then at No Good, we have built an amazing content creator studio where we build digital communities. We built the No Good community and build digital communities for brands as well.
Hi, I'm Mustafa. Thank you all for coming here. It's exciting to be back at South by. I'm a founder of No Good. We, as Sarah said, we built a great creator team, but we also enlarge a growth consultancy where we have the creator piece, but we also have the performance piece. And we help amazing brands, be up to no good. So excited to chat with you all about that today and sort of like our approach to helping brands scale and build communities the No Good way.
Yeah, so again, we're from No Good and we create No Good content. And one of our top pieces, probably the reason why we were invited, is what we call the No Good reality show. So we'll be talking about community building today. And one of our greatest levers has been this reality show. So to sort of give you a taste of that, we're going to show you a couple of those videos before we start talking.
Hey, Sarah, we have a meeting.
What meeting?
This is the first time I'm hearing about a meeting.
It's on your calendar.
I don't see anything.
This meeting has been on her calendar for a week. It's her only meeting.
I swear, when I looked this morning, I'm sorry. I'm done. No, I'm sorry. I can't.
Meeting.
No, it's not on my calendar. I'm done.
I don't know where she's going. Where do you see? She went this way?
I'm not going on any more meetings. I'm not going on it.
Meeting for 5 minutes.
Stupid. Is that really? This kind of So that was our first big piece of content from the reality show, and then from there we just kept building and building. This allowed us to include more team members, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger. So we're going to show you one more.
That's the social team. They're work royalty. If our company had an Us Weekly, they'd always be on the cover. That one is Sarah. She's the most vain girl you'll ever meet. I used to sit next to her. She used to take 300 selfies an hour between calls. That guy over there, that's Rye. He's obsessed with his ring light. He even brought it to his grandma's funeral to make sure he had proper lighting for his TikToks. That feisty one, that's Val. She thinks she's the shit because Drake viewed her Instagram story one time. That super tall one, that's Chris. He spends most of his time coiffing his hair. He once deleted an entire Instagram account because his hair looked bad in a carousel picture.
All right, let me go. That will keep them. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So that is a little bit of a taste of what we do. Hopefully that you've seen more of the reality show. It's been one of the most fun projects that we've worked on. It's where we've gained the most learnings as well. But of course, just from these videos, it can kind of just seem like a fun, quirky thing to create. And then what else does it do? This whole talk is about community building. Community building is a big buzzword right now. It's kind of been really diluted. And so we're also going to talk about why it's important, why we don't want to dilute what that really means, and how to build a brand community that really creates impact for your business. So Mustafa, why? Why do we do this? Why are we creating these videos?
I have no idea. That was definitely, this team is very expensive. And it's, it was at the very beginning, it was very, no, in all seriousness, I think we build communities because ads are not working the same way they used to. That's one fact. I think there are multiple variables, but that's probably one of the biggest that has been happening lately. So ads are not as cheap as they used to be. CPMs are a lot more expensive now. And the other piece is that they are not as effective as they used to be. I think especially post privacy updates that we've seen. So and now CPMs going up, cost going up, and efficiency going down. And I know we have a lot of agencies here. We run performance teams as well. And I know a lot of them were not like that, but they don't work the same way they used to once. We don't have that arbitrage that we once had, but you can find arbitrage now in community. That's one reason. The other piece is which I think is also very important. It's social media essentially have effectively eaten media, and I would say part of ads as well. The average American watches 17 hours of videos a week. I think that's a massive a massive number. It's a lot of hours. People spend I think 2.5 hours on social media every day. So again, that's essentially eating our attention. And I would say the last piece is I think we believe that strong brands are distribution first brands. Distribution first means that they really figured that equation early on, and they have a sustainable equation as to how you scale their business. So like really building a community has become instead of back in the day it was maybe a nice to have. We believe that today it's a must have, and I think the best brands in the world have built a community, a strong community around them. And again, you can define communities in many ways, shapes, and forms. It can be following, it can be, I think different brands define it differently. But generally, the best brands in the world have communities around them. Even the one that claims that they don't do community or ads, like, a famous one is Tesla, right? Like, I think there's no one more attention-seeking in the world than Elon Musk. It's a creator-led brand, essentially. The same thing goes for, a lot of the brands that we like. I think everyone figured out that attention equals there's an ROI attached to it. And a lot of the brands that we love are, whether we like it or not, have built that community or somewhat have that sort of creator-led aspect, celebrity-led aspect to it. And I think that's going to show up, a lot more often down the road. So I think community for us was essential. We believe it's a must-have for most brands, and it was also a must-have for us. And we thought that if we claim to be good at it, we have to do it ourselves. And that was a challenge for us, and that's why we have the team and the creator studio.
So something that was a big cornerstone of our success, and the cornerstone that we use for the brands that we work with as well, is culture-driven content. Your internal culture really matters, and bringing your team forward and how you hire creators, like all of these things really matter. It really, what's on the inside shows on the outside, and that's what's going to show the most authentic self. So what would you say is the role of culture? How do we use culture in our content?
I was planning on asking you that question. I think I think like cultures and values is no longer, it's essential in so many ways. And I think this, like the example that we're sharing here is just another way where culture just compounds in ways that I just think a lot of, frankly, like founders and management teams don't really realize. I think having a culture first brand or having a brand that really values culture pays so much dividends. Not just in recruitment, not much in attracting talents, but also in being able to show up and really open up the curtain and tell your brands and your audience and your customers who we are and what we're like. And I think I can't see, like, it's really hard to be successful as a brand in a specific category unless you have like some type of monopoly in a specific category without really being having a strong culture. So it starts with, from within first. Like, I think this is our real culture. This is not just our Instagram culture or TikTok culture. This is our real culture. And again, there's these are the fancy videos. We have a lot of videos where, we make fun, like we're not intentionally making fun of ourselves, but we're showing who we truly are. We talk about the stress. We talk about, our least favorite parts of the work. We talk about everything. And I think opening that curtain up is something that is essential, but I think the only way we can do it is allowing that culture where people can be who they truly are, and I think it's really hard to have creative that can actually create in an environment without really making sure that you're fostering that culture. So I think it was at the heart of everything that we've done, and again, honestly, culture is the amalgam of interactions of the people that you hire. So we hired well, and we have values that we stick to, and we let them be shine and do what they do best. And obviously we have some goals that we track and ways where we make sure that people can really pull that weight and drive value. But culture, again, I think it's a core part. We wouldn't have been successful here if we didn't have the right culture to begin with.
Yeah, one of the biggest soft validations for us is when we have been approached by people who are even interviewing or that we're talking to clients and they, meet our team and they're like, oh, it's very clear, like you are how you present online. It's almost like influencing and how that personality, are we communicating the no good personality online as we are internally? And so when we get that validation, it's always like, okay, like that means the social is working. That means the social is winning and we're presenting ourselves in the most authentic way possible.
But Sarah, you've hired a lot of the team members here. What are you looking for? Because Sarah is like really big on she had to like change our entire hiring process around it. Sarah and Marina worked on the hiring process. So what has been your way?
Yeah, hiring for like a creator studio is a little bit different. It's not hiring, you're casting. It's really casting talent, and you're looking at personalities and how they exhibit their personalities. There's so many talented creators out there, and you want to make sure that your brand, we wanted to make sure our brand aligned with the creators that were coming in. How do they present their humor? How do they present inspiring content? What do they talk about? What do they value? We always, I think in all of our hiring, that's why our internal culture has helped us so much, is that we're very rooted in brand values, very rooted in who we are, and the people that we're coming, we're very protective of that culture. And so if you're going to be coming in, then you embody that as well. That goes along with our casting of creators. But something that's a little bit different when you're bringing this into something like a studio is it's not just somebody presenting on camera. It's not just somebody who can talk to a camera. It's somebody who can also manage a community and have a pulse on that community. Do they understand what it means to have an engaging piece of content and what to do from there? Do they understand when we're getting comments and we're getting feedback, how are they speaking to that community? Because it should be a very two-way conversation. Our content is really driven by our community. We have so many requests, and we'll put Easter eggs in content like this, and this will make sense if you watch more of the content. We have a raccoon joke, but we get this, these internal jokes or inside jokes really matter to the community, and can that person drive that type of community and talk to them and really understand what they want to see as well, and then create from that. So that was very important.
Yeah, I personally struggled a bit with that piece early on because we had to break our hiring process for this, or change it. I wouldn't say break it, but early on, I think I wanted to hire really great marketers. The issue is that I think I was looking for the wrong thing, particularly for this team. And again, obviously, there's certain functions you have to be really clear. Like you need to know like what is a must-have, what's a nice-to-have for every role. And I think the team here really helped me sort of like, and the larger management team just figure out what are the key ingredients that we should be hiring for. And I think it matters, as you said, like it's really casting, not hiring. When you said that to me the first time, I'm like, really, is that what we're becoming? But again, it's really worked, and I think it's truly is casting, not just traditional hiring. And again, it's we continue to do it that way, and we're helping a bunch of other brands also place creators with the same exact approach.
So when we started building this community, as we were bringing creators in, some of our cornerstones, like I want to talk about the how, like what are some like fundamentals of what we started with before we even started posting. We got the talent, and we were very, very clear on we wanted our talent to flourish and be able to show their personalities and their creativities. But how do we do that under the no good umbrella? And how do we make sure that it is aligned with our brand? So one thing that, when we looked at our community interests first, and your community interests are tangential to what you are actually presenting. So again, like Mustafa was like, he wanted to hire marketers, but outside of that, we're talking to a lot of marketers, but there's a lot of different interests. The same people who would be interested in marketing are interested in this type of content. And really understanding the audience is very important to us. And it's very important when we're talking to brands as well as looking at our community or company persona as well. When we are presenting content, one wall that we really ran into is content we're like that wasn't aligned, and that's okay. Every time that we experimented, we're given the question of is this like a no good piece of content? And how we were able to experiment that is content buckets. We established content buckets really early on, and these change a lot, which is good. But early on, we'd established content buckets based on our community values. What do we enjoy talking about? What is our community interested in talking about? What makes sense for us? And these content buckets allowed us to have sort of an experiment framework for us to actually measure, which content is working the best on which channel as well. That's also something that we ran into, is that the more content we produced, and we had it on about 3 different channels at once, each channel had its own personality. That's very normal, and that should happen. Now, our content strategy is very segmented from channel to channel. Our YouTube, our Instagram, and our TikTok all have different personalities, and we produce content based on those channel personalities as well.
Yeah, and I would add one thing to that. It's still within the larger umbrella. It's still the same sort of like personality, the same brand. But it's we were running a lot of ads early on, and this is sort of like not just us. Obviously, we as a brand, we don't run a lot of ads, but for one of our portfolio brands, we're running a lot of ads. And then when we switched to that model, I think we learn a ton about it. And I would say, how many like in every market you have like that sort of total addressable market, and then you have the people who are in market to buy, right? Like if you have like that's a really simplified way to break down your market, right? For the most part, your people who are in market are less than 5%. Or like how many people here are in market to buy a car? Like there's 2 or 3. And our advertising model is like really direct response driven in a way where we're trying to really unlock the 2 people here and leaving the 95% unengaged. And the entire sort of like performance model and how it's built and how the tracking, and we had one brand where and again, I can't share their name, but like a brand that we all love, very sexy brand. It's awesome. We worked with them for 6 months, and then they tried to do sort of like this sort of direct response driven way of tracking the work that we do. And one aspect of the work, this is more of like the creator-led, community-led growth work. And it was, again, it showed that if we only have 3% according to GA, it was in GA4 at the time. I wonder what it would be right now, but it was, Google Analytics only said like only 3% of conversions came from social media. And obviously it's really hard to really like justify ROI. It's like, we're paying this brand, we're paying this team, it's only 3%, it's not leading to conversions. What are you guys doing? And this is like, a CFO-led brand. Most brands are for the most part. And they're used to this sort of direct response approach for tracking. But we ended up give us a little bit of time. What we did, installed post-conversion surveys, and we did some different types of tracking, incrementality, whole test, and to really start seeing, is what we're doing is really helpful. And again, the numbers were, staggeringly different. Like we ended up seeing 21% of people were introduced to the brand through social media. Another 17% were introduced to the brand through words of mouth, which is probably transferred through social media. So I think the way we track and the way we think about market, what is a total addressable market, what is people who have the intent that everyone is trying to track for, and how our performance model and measurements haven't really evolved to match the new strategies. And again, it's something that we think a lot about, because it's most brands out there are going after that 5%, and when you try to address the 95%, they just call it awareness. And you can track, and it's called branding and awareness, and it's this sort of like dark thing that you're going to do a lot of work in, and it's interesting, but we can't really attribute it back because it's really creative. We can't really, there are ways to make sense of it. And I think that was an important part. And once we figured that out, how to really make sense of it and how to measure the impact there, I think we started seeing a lot more success, and we started being a lot more impactful when we walk into these rooms with management and CFOs. Is like, hey, this is what you're missing. And I think we had a slide or two that explained that as well. So this is when we're talking about the total addressable market, you're trying to really bring aware and engaged audience, and then really start your funnel. Everyone starts the funnel from the middle, and that's what we've been doing, and leaving that TAM. And I think that's what community-led growth and really the creator-led approach is helping a lot of brands really sort of navigate this. And I think probably the next slides also, you have the unaware, low intent to purchase, that everyone in the room here that was not trying to, is not in market to buy a car. And then they're moving into the demand pool. And then you have that entire loop works. And again, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I think that sort of understanding and the strategy was a key component of how we make it work for ourselves, but also a lot of our portfolio brands as well.
I think we both have answers to this, but what would you say are the key ingredients to building a brand community?
You should start on this. You're much better here.
Okay, I can start. So one thing that we really are driving into is not fearing the line. We really push our partners into finding where that line is, but you're probably going to cross it. When we are going into ideations and brainstorms, of course, like this is when like the intern asks you to do a dance, to do a lipa or something. This is what we mean. Like why are we doing that type of content where we're brainstorming? We hope that ideas scare us. We really want something to come out of the team's mouth and be like, are you sure we should do that? And usually that means it's a great idea. Sometimes we got to rein it in, but pushing that line, it's a very noisy market out there. Like social is just getting bigger and bigger. We're competing with creators, we're competing with individuals, we're competing with other brands. So in order to be different, you have to find the line and be willing to cross it and really find where your edge to your brand personality is. And also for us, we're very, very data, like we're kind of data nerds. And so data-backed experimentation is also helpful. That helps us to understand also when we have a piece of content that we were a little nervous about, we put it out there, did it work? Tracking that content bucket, tracking that format style, and really identifying those sort of winning pieces. Oh, when we talk about tech, using a direct-to-camera high production video, that does really well on YouTube. And when we talk about culture, using a skit and we put that on Instagram, that does really well on Instagram. And these are all sort of segmented things that have really helped us scale.
I would add to that is really like I think you talk about the measurement piece, and I think there's like I would separate the ROI measurements from the attention measurements. And I think our team does not, like when you're actually creating, they have their North Star that is not really a lot of the time ROI measured. And I know this is a lot of people that struggle with that one. It's really hard to tell, like you can always give send the affiliate link and track these links back and do that. But I think good community strategy is not really driven by just that. They understand that attention, reach, engagement. I think I would emphasize engagement here equals ROI, and you will make sense of that ROI later. But I think it's very important that you understand the connection there, especially if you're on track with your content buckets and how these content buckets align with your larger strategy as a brand. And you can have more of the commercial stuff, the high intent stuff. You can plug it in there, but it shouldn't be like the main thing that drives your strategy, because if you're truly driven by reach and engagement, you will find yourself creating interesting stuff that is actually interesting to your community. But you're driven by ROI and it's just the wrong metric. So just figure out which metric to use when. And I think it's very important for the creator team and the community team to figure that out. And I think, I struggled with that one early on, coming from, spending years in search and social, programmatic, all the traditional sort of performance stuff. Just really having to adjust to this was a struggle. But then figuring it out, on the back end with post conversions, incrementality, sometimes even more media mix modeling. If you're really running quite a bit of budget for a long time, I think it's there are ways to make sense of it. But I think you need, if you're getting the attention, you're getting the engagement, and it's the right audience and the right values that aligns with the content buckets that you have, and obviously within sort of like the community that you're trying to historically unlock as a brand. I think you're likely on the right track if you're getting that engagement and getting that reach.
As you're going into like the market of attention, you'll find that your ideas should be getting broader and they should be getting bolder. A lot of times, like we'll try and narrow down and tie things back to something, but that's not what's going to get the views. It's not what's going to get that attention and bring people into your world and really showcase your personality. So I really encourage, I cannot stress enough, the ideas should scare you. They should be bold, and you should not be afraid to really be bold and try new things.
Yeah, you guys do scare me a lot of the time.
I think we do.
But from your perspective, what do you think are the, I guess for this show particularly, how did you even come up with that idea? Because I was out on my paternity leave, and I came back to this show, so I have zero contribution to this success. But I came back to it, and they had 2 or 3 episodes, and it was it's amazing to see it. So how did you guys start, and what was the spark?
Yeah. Again, our internal culture, we were already joking about things like this. And so in one of our brainstorms, it was something that we were talking about. And is there any Love is Blind fans in here? Yeah, there we go. I love reality TV. Love is Blind is where I'm at right now. And I thought, okay, what if we took this into The Office? But we have The Office show, but what if we made this more like a reality TV, really amp up the dramas And it also, what we didn't see from that is we were able to pull in new characters. We were able to bring in new team members. We have the audience like very invested in our characters, and they'll suggest things. And what if they do this? And oh, I can't wait to see this person in the next episode. So that's how it started. And we filmed it in a reality show type filming. It was from a creative perspective. It was really interesting and a very fun new way to produce. And yeah, it just took off. And from a foundation level, it just gave us so much to work with. Of course, we're very proud of our culture. And I love when I came into No Good, like that's what drew me in. And so we knew that that was going to be a winning piece for us, and it's a winning piece for our community. And then he saw the show. He was like, what is this? And I'm like, no, it's fine. Like, just let it roll. Like, let us keep going. Let him cook. And we did. And it's been so fun. We've created so many episodes. I don't even know how many, but it's gained over 10 million views, which is just very rewarding.
I've gotten a lot of messages when I was out about this, but yeah. How to scale from here? So brand communities, what's now that you've sort of like have the right talents, the right seed in place, the right frameworks of measurements, ideally, like, you have the right culture in place and your team out there creating content. And, as an exec or someone in a place of managing budget, you're wondering every day, am I doing the right thing? Am I wasting my money here? What's going on? There's a lot of videos being created. How can I make sense of this? You're getting some attention, some reach, some engagement, but how do you scale to actually start seeing a bigger ROI? What are the ingredients there?
Yeah, that for us came from intentional measurement on an account level and on a content level. On account level, we're looking at reach and we're looking at engagements. We're looking at followers as well, but mainly reach and engagements. And then from a content level, we are looking at each content's piece of reach and engagement rate to see, is that something that we want to continue or not? And then we also tracked different factors to the content, levers to pull, if you will. So lever one was always content bucket. I know I keep talking about it, but content bucket. Is this content bucket working? If we have 4 content buckets and we can see them all moving up and down in our performance, if one is going down on a certain platform, maybe that's not a content bucket for that platform, and that's okay as well. Or maybe we need to switch that out. We also tested content formats. So when we hired talent, they all have their own individual types of editing, their different creation style. And so we also tested new pieces of creation from skits to direct to camera. We've got a podcast style. We've got like a high production style. So that's a lever that we pulled as well. We measure tone of voice. Like, did the community, do they react best when we are inspiring, when we're funny, I hope? And that was it for us. But it was really creating almost like this machine where we could constantly be pulling levers. One thing that's frustrating, everybody's going to run into it if you're on social. You will never have it right. You will never have the right formula for more than a month. The algorithms everywhere change. You have to be willing to say, okay, that's totally fine. So just because a piece of content worked last month does not mean it's going to work this month. Hopefully you can frame that to be exciting and not frustrating, but that constant pivot and flexibility was also really important for us to stay ahead of the game, because you can always have a really high view video and then kind of nothing comes from that after. Maintaining that momentum and always being willing to pivot around what the community is interested in was very important.
I would add one thing here too. It's partnership, it's relationship over, partnerships or collaboration. When you're bringing creators in, whether you're doing in-house creators model or partnerships with creators, it's really relationships over partnership. Relationships in a sense that they need to, like, relationships with your team in large, they need to like believe in the brand. They need to bring excitement. You also need to allow them to make mistakes and bring their own personality into this. Because otherwise, it's not going to be the first video that is always a hit, or the second or the third. It takes time sometimes. But if you have the right relationships, you're going to probably think about it a little bit in a sort of like a long-term perspective. And I think I feel like that's an important piece, because and I think that's the beauty also of the in-house creators and the plug-in creators model, where there's safety in it. Like, you're going to be creating a bunch of content. This is sort of a sandbox where you can be really creative, create awesome content, and it's not all going to land, but we're going to figure out the right recipe and the right formula that makes sense for us and makes sense for our culture and makes sense for us with you as someone that is part of that success as well.
Yeah, the creative partnerships is a big thing when we're casting creators, really letting their individual creativity shine. We're bringing them in for their own personality to then mesh into what we are. It was not to control or direct, and we had great success from that. And we've gotten so many good, cool learnings from that. New content buckets, new delivery styles, all of that came because these creators were coming in with talent that we did not have before, that we could then empower them, and that made everything else rise as well.
So I have more questions for you, I guess.
Okay.
So in terms of like have you seen like, do you guys use ads to really like boost any of this content, or what's the role of ad in all of this generally? And do you see sort of like, creators really using ads or brands using ads to boost their community content?
Yeah, I think from an organic to ads relationship, what we've seen work the best, what we've seen our partners do really, really well is when a piece of organic content is already doing really well, it's a good indicator for the ad platform. So putting money behind that, but we start from an organic first method and then go back around with a Spark ad or something like that for this top level content, because it's sort of given free, it's given free proof that it will do well and it will convert well.
Awesome. And in terms of like, I guess, where brands find success today, and I think that I'm trying to like get more of like practical. If you had to like recreate the community, what channels would we focus on? Where do you think brands can find success today, platforms wise?
Which platforms? Rate the platforms. Okay. I like
Get
this.
us in trouble.
I won't get you in trouble. Honestly, a platform that I think has really great growth potential right now is YouTube. They're one of the oldest. They know what they're doing. But specifically YouTube Shorts, that's where we have recently in the past about like 9 months have seen amazing growth potential. I love TikTok dearly, but its growth potential is not what it used to be. It's just not. It's not as brand friendly as it used to be. And YouTube is very brand friendly, and it also has offered the best experimentation, honestly, for like content buckets and identifying which content buckets are doing well. YouTube's been very, very clear. Instagram is wonderful for community building and wonderful for community engagement. For as far as engagement rates and the most community interaction, I think Instagram is definitely top. And then TikTok has its place. It's a lot of content to go viral a couple of times, but that is one place where you can really test a brand personality. It's got a little bit, as far as a culture, it's got a little bit less rules. So if you're really wanting to try something new, TikTok's a great place to be.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So it's YouTube Shorts is where it's at today?
YouTube Shorts is absolutely where it's at.
I feel like, what do you think was TikTok and TikTok Shop, like, I guess, for retail brands and how do you plug in that TikTok Shop piece into your community? Because it feels like very commercial too.
It does feel very commercial. If you're featuring your product in a video, or if you have product to feature in a video, I don't see the reason why you wouldn't tag it. From a community perspective, it's more of a courtesy. They're going to want to find it. Chances are you have the community commenting, like, where can I get this link? It's a pure convenience thing for the buyers. And so like a great brand who's doing this actually very well, honestly, is Benefit. But of course, their content, it makes sense to have the product there. They're showing tutorials. Of course, they're going to be tagging that product. And if they didn't, it would just be a giant missed opportunity. I think TikTok Shop is a great lever for any D2C brand right now.
On brands, what are the best brands doing this out there now? I know we have different opinions here, but you go.
Yeah, I've got a few. Of course, No Good. We're doing it pretty well. I also
agree with that one.
Yeah, I also love TLDV. If you guys have followed TLDV, they are a song.
Any TLDV fans here? No, anyone knows who they are? No.
I really check out their content. They have really honed in on entertainment first, product after, which has made it so they actually have comments that are like, wait, I didn't know that you had a product. And then their community team is able to come back around and educate on the product, but they have this buy-in from this community and a very, very loyal community. Their views are great. Their engagement rate is fantastic. So I think that they're doing it really, really well. Set Active is also a brand that I think is doing really, really well. In the past 4 months, they brought in actually a very large influencer in-house as sort of their TikTok consultant, their TikTok representative. I don't think everybody needs to do that. It was sort of an unconventional way to do that, but they aren't really hitching themselves on the back of his following. But what they understood is that he got TikTok, he got that culture, and that fun way that he produces his content really matched their internal culture. And so from that, what we've gotten to see these last 4 months is content that we haven't gotten to see before in office. They're having a lot more fun. And I think that that's, from a culture perspective, they're doing a really good job. And then my last one is Base. Base Suitcases are doing a fantastic job in the community engagement piece. And they're also taking it offline as well, but they are very tapped into what their community wants and needs. I'm sure you guys probably saw all the social posts from the Base Suitcase car wash. They did this washing activation in LA where you could bring your suitcase to get a free cleaning, because they saw a bunch of their community was talking about how their Base suitcase is so pretty, but they're getting scuffs all over it. That's how they also did all the content around their makeup bags as well, and they had people requesting all the things they wanted to pour in the makeup bag so that they could see how well it could clean up. Like they're very in tune with their community, and I really admire that.
Yeah, I do love their stuff too. I think the interesting part about TLDV is that it's a software company, and software is boring. So it's really easy to do consumer products and like get out there and tell interesting stuff about consumer product. But if you're in the software space, and people here that have, doing creator work or branding work for software, it's challenging. It's features, benefits, it's in value, it's B2B. It's very different, and it's really hard to make it cool and interesting. And I think they did a good job with that. I do think, like, back to your comment about the hiring, like, bringing on big creators too. You gotta think about how sustainable it is. It's always fun at the beginning. Like the curve is always, like you're gonna be excited. You're bringing a big name in. You need to make sure it's sustainable, which is why we're really at No Good. We're big fans of really bringing in young creators and fostering these creators and giving them a platform, and also like having them hone in their craft, learn how to deal and engage with brands. And I think it creates a win-win in that sense. And it's you can keep on building that and then allow that sort of plug-in creator model where they show up with different brands and try to show value. What do you think of engaging with bigger creators versus sort of like the plug-in creator squad?
I really like the plug-in creator squad. I think that it allows you to really show your personality, and when you bring in creator like that, really allowing them to see the whole process, showing who the brand is, aligning with those brand values so that they can speak to it best. I think that's the most authentic way to do that. I also think that's the way that your community is going to be longest lasting. And then partnering with creators, it's similar, of course. Those one-off relationships are good for some campaigns. But it's similar in how you're going to pick those creators. Do they align with brand values? And a lot of times these creators you can find in your own community. They may already be engaging with your content and things like that. So, but I like the plug-in creator model because it just allows for so much more opportunity and so much more scaling of that community itself.
Awesome. So I think this is a question back to you too here. I was wondering, should we ask this or not? But it's what do you think of like celebrity-led brands right now and creator-led brands? And do you think this is a sustainable way of building communities today? And give us examples of sustainable way and unsustainable way.
Yes. So celebrity brands, I think that we've seen some really highs and we've seen a lot of lows. To give an example of to do a comparison of the brands, I like both brands, but Rare Beauty and Rhode Beauty, I'm not trying to do a Selena and Hailey thing, I promise, but it's very interesting from a business perspective what they're doing. So with Rare Beauty, I find it to be very sustainable as far as their model. They've really put Selena in the backseat, which is the way that I think that we've seen the best celebrity-led brands. That's the best way to do it. And they have put their community first. They have a whole like comfort collective or like yoga platform where they have free videos for their audience. They are doing all things around self-care and wellness. That is them understanding their community and understanding their community interests that is tangential to their product. They're not only doing tutorials. They're not just saying, hey, Selena wore this blush, you should wear it too. They're really investing in how to be a better you. We're going to give you the tools to be a better you. And also, we've got this amazing product that I think you're going to love. And that's how they're creating loyalists. There are loyalists to these brands, to Rare Beauty. That's how they have people showing up for them. with Road Beauty. I think that they're doing some really cool stuff. The phone case looks awesome. But they are really hitching it off the back of, instead of, if you want to look like the best version of you, you go to Rare. If you want to look like Hailey Bieber, you go to Road Beauty. And I just don't think that that's a very sustainable way to do it. It's, again, going to see a cool peak. But once all the glitz and glamour falls away, where's the community and where's the investment into their audience?
Hot take, huh?
I'm just saying. So you touched on it a little bit earlier as well, but as far as measuring impact, like how do you go about measuring the impact of all the social efforts that you're doing?
Well, we talked about the attention metrics and then the ROI stuff. Like the attention metrics we talked about engagement, obviously number one. Reach, followers, I think are important, but I think the ROI piece is also very important. And I think the zero-party data and first-party data is very important there. And it's a very important piece of the puzzle. And I think one aspect of it is post-conversion surveys. And I think I mentioned it a few times. If you don't have that right now, you're really missing out on getting a glimpse of like how people really see the brand. And I just don't think your attribution, doesn't matter how sophisticated it is. I just don't think it's given you like the full story. Really, and again, I'm happy to nerd out on attribution. That's where I spent most of my career early. And again, I think it's missing a lot because the data is lacking. That's what Apple and Google did. It's like they cut the cords for the most part, and we're lacking a lot of the data. Yes, attribution can be a really good way to find a lot of the answers. But I think when it comes down to community, I think it's going to show in post-conversion surveys and talking to your customers. It's going to show a lot more. You're going to see the impact a lot more. But obviously, you can measure part of the impact there. There's also like you can always do like the delta tests and, hold up tests. A lot of the incrementality stuff can be helpful there, where you basically have a hold group and you have or a control group and you have expose different audience to different channels, or just stop investing in a channel, or really measuring the delta of a specific video or specific campaign or specific creator partnership. So there are many ways, shapes, and form where you can measure the impact. But again, I would using the right metric with the right campaign or the right the right team. I think it really matters, because if you try to bring a bunch of creators and creators and tell them, I want to know the exact CAC to LTV ratio on this, I just don't think you'll be getting much creative output on the work. I think you can tell them that as an idea. I just don't think you're holding them accountable to the right metric here. And we've tried that. It's not like we haven't tried. We've tried that, and I've seen a lot of brands try. But generally, it's really, there are the attention metrics and there are the ROI metrics, and they have different peoples. And obviously, you need to make the connections between the two. The strategy, typically the strategist on the account needs to be aware of like how to connect the attention metrics back to ROI. Because if we're out there, this is something that we did. Like, we had one creator that loves to talk about Apple products and kept talking about Apple products. I was like, we're not just got free ads for Apple. Like, why are we talking about Apple products? Apple launched this product. Why this is interesting? Bring it back to our community. Why it's interesting to our audience. So we always ask why it's interesting. Why this is something we should talk about. So bringing back to our audience and who we're talking to and where we're trying to make an impact and who we are, I think is a very important piece to bring it back to the ROI. And that shows when we're valuable to our audience, valuable to our customers, I think it rewards our ROI, because that's back to the 95% and 5%, total, like focusing on the total addressable marketing, engaging that market, and really having reach within that market is really like how to unlock ROI in a way that is not really very direct response driven.
I think we are right at time for some questions. Ready for questions?
Any questions? Yes, go ahead.
Does this mic work for the questions? That might be helpful. Hi.
Hi. Is this on? Yes? Okay. Thank you. A question probably for you, Sarah. I really liked how you talked about finding out about your community's interests and creating content around that. If you're a brand in a position where you have an established community, but your business objective is actually to age down your brand and reach a new community, do you have any advice on like how to tailor content towards that objective?
Absolutely. I think this first best way to do this is rooted in the creators themselves. So the creators that you are casting should be a personification of the community that you're trying to reach. This may be very literal, like as in age group and things like that, but also in personality. And is that somebody that can influence the group that you are actually talking to? So I think having the right creators who can really speak to that group and will understand their humor, understand their issues, understand the type of problems that they are having that you can then speak to is going to be the best way to do that. And then use that first to then bring it back to your brand persona and your brand values as well. Having that come back around with the content buckets is going to be very helpful. And then from an experimentation purpose, as you're trying to reach this new audience, that's where you can identify what buckets and what tone of voice is working the best and just hammer into what's working. Is that helpful? Awesome.
Hi. My company has a CEO that's very revenue focused. So it can be challenging to convince him to put resources into something that does not have a direct pathway to revenue. And I'm in marketing, so it's very difficult for me to sort of explain that nebulous cloud of how marketing works. So how do you convince partners who have that similar reluctance?
You might be a really good perspective for that.
I think that's a very common thing, and I think I understand why too. I think it's volatile sort of markets, and really, like, it depends on the type of business you're in. Some business just margins are tight. You can't really get out there and get fancy with content and creative. And I think the best thing is an experiment, and also looking at competition and show an example from competition. I think I've always, every time I talk to management teams about sort of like how they approach their strategy, I think competition is where their eyes really lit. When they want to see competition, what are the best brands in the game are doing, and more of like, instead of trying to like really like get onto the quant side of it, which you should at some point, and try to like really make ROI sense of it. And here's the experiment, here's how much we need, and here's the expectations and sort of incremental impact that we believe it's going to have on the brand. And there are ways to model that. I think it's the most convincing talking points have always been about, here's some of the best brands in the game, and here's what they're doing. Here's how they're doing it. Here's how it has been rewarding them, and here's how I believe it's going to reward us. Can you allow us to experiment with X and Y? And you can do low risk experiments, but you got to do it the right way too. It's going to have to be the minimal viable experiment, because you can't just put 2 videos on TikTok. There's so many like these like brand accounts that only like you can tell like they have only 5 videos on a platform, and then it's been abandoned. I always feel bad for the person that worked on those 5 videos, because that's like dreams that were never fulfilled. It's just, there's a graveyard. I think there should probably have a list of it, brands that have tried the channel and just they pulled back, and that tells you that they're not in it with the right mindset, and they're not really doing it in the minimal viable way that is also it has to be viable. So that just comes from the name. So I think these are my talking points usually, and genuinely again when these, I think they're feeling the pressure because they're seeing rising marketing cost. They see the shift in the space, and they understand that the future brands or current, like the successful brands, are distribution first brands. So they really need to figure out how to can distribute, and there's no better way to impact their ROI than building a community, because it's really impactful in your LTV. So also bringing it back to the LTV rather than just that direct response way. It's like revenue. Well, revenue is also made on the second, third, and fourth purchase, and the upsells and renewals and those types of I would say secondary revenue metrics, and not just the primary first purchase metric. So hopefully that helps.
Hi, I think this question is related to that minimal viability piece. How do you practically manage content production when you're constantly trying to optimize, but you also have to balance, approval processes and concepting, and some of these things have a really long runway? How do you stay relevant and keep up with frequency and balance all those things?
I can sort of hop on that. So something that not every process is going to be able to be quick. Sometimes you really have to go through a lot of approvals. We've worked with partners that have a lot of approvals, which means that those timelines are a lot larger. A way that we've sort of mitigated that is having a what we call like an evergreen calendar. And so when we have to work like a month ahead, we have this evergreen calendar of what we know we want to talk about. That's always based in the experiments that we're currently running, in the content that's going to be relevant for that month, and these types of things. However, we have to have the flexibility within that month. So as things are posting, if we want to hop on a trend, if there is a news article that just came out, if there's something that we need to talk about right now, because it's an evergreen calendar, it's okay to move. Like I always like, this is a living, breathing strategy. If nothing happens and nothing's exciting and nobody has an idea in their brain, we've got a whole month of evergreen content ready to go and it's great. Chances are something should move. And so having a team that's flexible with that. So, we can, this article just came out about us. We need to talk about it in here, here, and here. Let's go ahead and go through the approval processes, but you're only working on that one piece of content. It's sort of an urgent matter. You can get that through a lot quicker than trying to fit a very quick strategy on the go into a process that really is it gonna be friendly to that?
I would add to this because you talked about approvals. We advise brands to not just tell us the things we should not talk about and we should not touch. That do not, here's the list of things that we're not going to talk about and we're not going to areas that we should be careful with. But the rest of everything else is game. Because if you start having to approve every single thing and really making sure that everything is on messaging position, you're bringing the wrong energy into it and you're sabotaging a team that you just paid for.
It will kill it. It will kill it. We've seen it happen multiple times.
Yeah. So there's nothing worse than a creative team run by lawyers. You need to tell that to the lawyers first. And when the lawyers take a step back, I think we're going to have a more productive conversation. The same thing with the finance team. We just need to make sure that we're convincing when we walk into these rooms. And I think we would love to tell us here are the things that we should be aware of. Just really give us the framework of how we can give the team the freedom and the creativity to get out there and do what they do best and allow you to do what you do best, which is protecting the organization. But just having the why behind the approval process is often what we're trying to remove. And then this is also the beauty, and this is sort of like a shameless plug, the beauty of having a third party. You can always blame it on the third party. So this is a way that some brands sort of get away from that with that and sort of to avoid internal red tapes. And then having, just to get an experiment and figure out, when things break, we can always remove it. And the amount of brands, there's a certain level of there's a lot of content that can be walked back, and there's certain things that you cannot walk them back once they're out there damaging. And we just need to make sure that what is damaging, just really stay away from it and make that absolutely clear in our process. The rest is just I don't think it's we've rarely seen something like that can be damaging.
Thank you both for being here. I'm Ryan. I'm with BNP Creative. We're a social video agency too. But my question is, how would you advise a client who is open to experimentation, open to putting a human face on some campaign or, just kind of showing the culture of their office, but is afraid that what's cool today, what's funny today might not be that way tomorrow. A person who is perfectly acceptable today might not be that way tomorrow.
Interesting. So, meaning sort of hitching the brand behind the person?
Yes, exactly. Someone who seems at the time like a good fit, but then a week later, month later, that person's either left the company or kind of done something in their personal life that makes them a liability.
That's a very fair it's a very fair concern. I think from a casting perspective, hopefully we're not casting anybody that we think is going to be a major legal liability next week. But we've, with making a content strategy that's sustainable, we have creators in-house that we have left us and gone into new adventures. And it's also about building the brand personality, not the creator personality. So it is very helpful to have faces. The viewers are going to really trust a face. That's why you are humanizing the brand in that way, but you are creating a personality for the brand. Most of our creators have their own, including myself, have our own we have our own platforms, but it's very clear when you're seeing, for instance, a Sarah Boss video versus a No Good video. Those personalities should be different. And that's something that we ran into and we had to define. We had to work with creators because, of course, they're coming in with their own creative perspective, but we had to say, okay, this is a little bit too similar to your personal content, which is awesome. And we're empowering you to do that. However, how can we make sure that this fits into the No Good sphere, if that makes sense?
And you always have the archive button, right? If something goes wrong. We haven't had that issue yet, to be perfectly honest. But I think it's if it depends what exactly, if you're worried about someone getting out, potentially getting canceled retrospectively, it's just common. You can always archive or obviously hopefully you're true to your values, that, whatever you do now and later will be consistent with those values. But some brands, if they make their partnership with the wrong person, they can always walk it back. It was a partnership. And I think, every party have their own respective agencies in that sense. So, so I don't know what exactly you're trying to like tackle here, but generally, you can always, walk things back and archive.
I think it would come down to, would you advise that they still go forward and, you can mitigate that risk, or would you advise them not to do it if they're uncomfortable with that idea?
I don't know what risk we're mitigating, but I would say we hire people that align with your values. And I think that's absolutely, that's the most important thing. And I think, risky, we don't really we try to advise brand not to get into this. Is, as you said, it has to be sustainable. We talked about building the relationship aspect. It's not a partnership. It's not one-time thing. And it's a relationship. This is someone that is going to be the voice or a voice for your brand, and you really need to make sure that it's you really you cast that voice and make sure that they are aligned with your values. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi guys, thank you for the insights. Speaking from Brazil in a community perspective as well, how do you keep Sarah engaged working in No Good? I mean, once the creator gets big, we do have a house of creators as well. Once they get too big, how do you keep them engaged on being part of a company instead of going solo and by themselves?
I can answer this, but Sarah, I would love to hear her perspective too. I think it's great that they do awesome on their own. I think that's a great thing. I think that's approaching it from that mindset. I think we invest in our creators for them to get out there and be awesome and be great at what they do, and that's a core part of the community that we've built. And we've had creators, and the reality is that they come and go. And we've had creators full time, we had creators part time, we had a creator network, and you really need to make sure that you're investing in those creators in every shape, way, and form. Because there's no way, it's trying to do it any other way. I don't think it's sustainable for you or them. I think that's sort of the overarching sort of approach of how we do it. And yes, we want Sarah to break. She's big already, so and would love her to get even bigger.
Yeah, I think from a creator perspective, it's very, very helpful that again, going back to culture, we have a very, very healthy, fun culture that it allows me to thrive creatively. There's a lot that I could not do without the team that I have. There's a lot that I could not do without the mentors that I have. There is a lot, from a creator, speaking as a creator, it's a very lonely, it's a very lonely job. And so having a team like that and having people to push you, you don't get that from being a creator on your own. And there's so many benefits. And again, we've had creators who moved on, and that's great, but they push me farther while also allowing a lot of creative freedom. Mustafa has given me a lot of room to grow, a lot of room to experiment, a lot of room to get things wrong, to really try something new. When I asked him if I could expense a ball pit, he said yes. And I was like, that's great. So it's
that was a mistake.
No, that content did great. So for these type of things, it's really, they've created a great environment for creators to flourish and grow creatively. Not just that we are feeding our creativity into that, but we are also getting enriched in that way as well. And then again, from a creative perspective, the stability of something like this is very attractive.
Nice. Well, one more.
Yeah.
How do you show brands the value of marketing for top of the funnel and not only conversions? Well, how the post case you talked about, Mustafa, but if you explore a little bit more, please.
I think the 95% analogy of you have total addressable market. You're trying to really direct response advertising, search, if you're selling shoes, someone's searching for shoes, this is someone in market to buy. That's only 5% of the market. Leaving everyone else out there is a mistake. It's a strategic mistake. And direct response advertising is only driven by unlocking that intent for the most part. And then you have this awareness piece that we're not good at engaging. And you're not going to engage by just having another ad that has your name on it and has your logo on it. And it has even a fancy copy made by ChatGPT. It's still not interesting enough. You need to really engage, show up and engage and have conversations and build a community. That is the only way. If you really deserve that dollar, you should put in the effort to to unlock that 95% total addressable market that you have as a brand. So strategically, I think it makes sense. The question that we have, which is a technical question, the challenge, which is how do we even track this? We have to know how the advertising sort of like measurement framework was built in the first place. It was built again like the first few platforms or the biggest platforms. You have search, which is very intent driven, and then you have social, which was, you know, back in the day you have the 1% lookalike, which is going to figure out what you're going to buy, and like it's all about figuring out intent. So it's very direct response driven. We haven't really figured out how to really track these awareness pieces, and hopefully for over the next 5 years, I'm already seeing some products really making some interesting work in there. We have our own proprietary way of how we do that. And I think the next 5 years, we'll really see a lot of breakthroughs in how we truly track awareness back to dollars.
Thank you very much.